Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Alongside me on the screen here is my guest tonight, Jim Holley. He was the first ever World Supercross champion, a 1976 80cc national champion, a national ultracross champion, which I'm not even sure what an ultracross champion is, Jim, but we're going to be getting into that. He's also been the voice of Race Day Live for over 22 years now. We'll be talking to Jim Holley in just a second. Before I let him jump in there, I've got to thank our sponsors: Motion Pro, Vinco, Preston Petty Products, Racer X, Full Circle Racing, the International Motocross Museum, and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Jim.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for joining me tonight. And you've been a busy guy. I know you just got back from, was it Washougal, where they had the Yamaha YZ 50th anniversary of the introduction of the YZ?
Yeah, it's going to be a kickoff. It's a year-long celebration there, and they brought, Damon Bradshaw up there, Doug Dubach, Ryan Villapoto, Brock Glover, myself. We were up in Washougal, Washington, to unveil the motorcycles that actually Hayden Deegan won on. He went 1-1 up there, and they're pretty cool. They're a throwback of the 1993 season. With the purple rims. And also I saw a statement. I talked to the Yamaha guys. I knew it already, but I just couldn't divulge that information. But it's going to be a replica motorcycle you can purchase in 2024. The only thing, though, it won't have the purple rims. It will have the black rims. So if you like that look, you can order some purple rims, and you'll be just like Hayden Deegan.
Yeah, and you know what? That Deegan kid, he's doing a heck of a job for Yamaha right now. He had the name before him, obviously, with his dad, but he's certainly standing up to all the hype, no doubt about that. Would you agree, Jim?
Absolutely. I mean, for a rookie, for what he has done, they really didn't know if he was ready for Supercross, and they said, well, I talked to Bobby Reagan, the owner of the Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha team, and he said, they wanted to give him a shot and see what he could do, and you saw what he did in Supercross and now outdoors. I mean, you go back to 1 year ago, Washougal, where he kind of made a debut, and, he didn't fare so well. I think he had a crash and stuff, but this year he's just knocking them down one by one. I think there's only 3 rounds to go. He's 3 points behind, Hunter Lawrence. We'll see what happens, but he's on fire right now.
Yeah. Jim, while I'm thinking about it, I want to remind people to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. We will give away a beautiful sticker sheet like this, compliments of Vinco.com. You could check back on our Facebook page tomorrow, and we'll tell you who the random share giveaway winner was. Jim, what was Ultracross, the National Ultracross Series? What was that about?
Yeah, I actually won it 2 years in a row. I went to Yamaha, and they said, hey, I was towards the end of my AMA professional career, and they said, do you want to keep going a couple more years longer? I said, yeah, I feel all right. I could go a couple more years. And they said, well, there's a new series coming out. Mickey Thompson ran it, and it's called Ultracross. And I go, just like you, I said, well, what is Ultracross? Yeah. And they said, well, it's with stadium trucks. Ivan Stewart, Walker Evans, all those guys had stadium trucks, buggies. Jimmy Johnson got his start, Mercedes Gonzalez in the buggies, all that stuff. Yeah, that's actually in Japan at one of the races they had in the Tokyo Dome there. I won that one. But the Ultracross was, we ran the tracks backwards. So the jumps were really like this for the trucks, and then they had a backwards, it just dropped off. We ran it backwards, and we skied. The Volan brothers were there, Michael Craig. Actually, Ryan Hughes got his start there. Jeremy McGrath got his start there. I remember all those guys before, they came to Ultracross, because Kawasaki was a big supporter of that event also. And, the way it was is if you won your heat race, you started in the back row. And they had these streamers that you put on your back of your helmet. So there was 20 people in the main event. You had 2 rows, and on the back, you had the heat race winners. Each of the heat race winners, you could see, the crowd could see, oh, that guy won the heat race. I might not necessarily had won the event that night. I might have finished 3rd or 4th, but I got the most points and the most money because I came through passing a lot of the guys. And, it was a little bit frustrating for me not to win the event, because some guys would lay up and they would get a 5th or a 4th. And they'd start on the front row. We can't give a guy like Larry Brooks or Kyle Lewis, some of those guys. I was on the No Lane Yamaha team with Clark Jones and those guys. You can't give those guys way up there. I'm not going to catch them from the back of the pack. But, you know, I ended up winning a couple championships, put some more money in the bank, and, you know, got my career going a couple more years.
Yeah. You know, Jim, your career started off at a very early age, and your dad was behind you quite a bit throughout your career, and not all of us had that. But I thought it was very interesting. During my research, I discovered that your dad was a flat track racer, and you also had some neighbors who were some very influential racers, like the Haley brothers, I think it was, and they tried to keep you away
John
from
Haley. John Haley and Mark Haley, Eddie Mulder. Skip Van Leeuwen, Dusty Coppage. I grew up just, you know, a stone throw away from Trackmaster Racing frames. Ray Hensley and the guys down there building those frames. So that's kind of where I went into first, because my dad was a flat tracker and speedway and everything. And then we used to race down at Trojan Speedway, rode against Wayne Rainey. His dad built a really nice bike for him. But you know, we came to a thing that flat track racing, you can make an okay living, but motocross and supercross is where it was at. It's interesting the way that Wayne went his way into road racing and I went my way into, and we still rode for Yamaha. You know, it's interesting how your careers span out, but that's why I got out of the dirt track. But yeah, I was a dirt track guy. I still love dirt track. I mean, I just was on Pulp MX, and JD Beach was on there. And I asked him, I said, hey, JD, I'm going to ask you a question because I'm an old dirt tracker and I know a lot of numbers. The number 95 that you run, do you know who ran that number 95? And he said, yeah, Scotty Pearson. So I just remember those guys going to Ascot and watching all the, you know, the guys out there, Springsteen, Randy Goss, all the guys, the top guys, Ted Booty. I got a chance to, when I rode Superbikers at Carlsbad, you know, I had a good battle with Ted Booty and stuff. And funny, interesting story that Bubba Schobert and Eddie Lawson and Wayne Rainey, they were all down there too that year. And Eddie was riding Yamaha. And, you know, I asked those guys because I'm a motocross guy. I don't know nothing about drafting, but I'd watch those guys and they would come up on somebody and they'd get riding and they would just slingshot by. And I would do it and I would pull out and I wouldn't go past anybody. And they said, oh, you got to hold in a little longer. So I go, well, watch me this next practice and see if I hold in long enough. And man, they forgot to tell me that if you hold in too long, you get sucked into the rear wheel. And I hit the guy's rear wheel ahead of me. I didn't crash, he didn't crash. But after the practice, hey man, I'm really sorry. I didn't know it'd suck into me. But I finally got the hang of it. It's just, it's like poetry in motion to watch those guys. You know, there was a little chicane down the drag strip straightaway, and I'd watch those guys come in and they just go, yeah. And I'd come in and I'd shut off, turn it on. I'd just be losing so much time, but they taught me how to set up on the outside and really just go right through that chicane without shutting off. So I learned a lot. And I think that dirt track racing and stuff, even the Japanese that I work with today, I have a guy that's on his way to Loretta Lynn's. He's an 11-year-old Japanese guy. I teach him how to slide a motorcycle because sometimes on Supercross, you don't always have a berm, especially when you come off of a finish line jump and you make a left-hander on the start line straightaway. That is a flat corner. So you're going to have throttle control. You don't want to, you know, get the rear wheel to break loose. You don't want to shut it off and snap it off and high side. You know, you don't want to low side the bike. So there is a fine line. So I really work with a lot of kids on dirt track. And then there's no other better way to slide a motorcycle. It's just awesome to, you know, go watch guys like Brad Baker. I helped out Brad Baker and, you know, Jared Mees and you know, Sammy Halbert, all those guys I know, and it's just fun. Kevin Atherton, you know, I just really enjoy dirt track racing, especially the miles, you know, Sacramento Mile or Springfield.
So, Jim, you started off on 80s and motocross. Then you went to flat track, or were you like at a very early age racing?
No, I was at a flat track because that photo you saw of me, that was a magazine test. I had a dirt track helmet, visor down and everything. I wasn't quite into the motocross. I started off racing, you know, Indian Dunes, local races, but I also did flat track too.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I read that you had a pro license at 14 years old, but it couldn't have been like a pro license where a guy goes to race supercross or motocross. What was there, a mini bike pro license?
Correct. Yeah, it wasn't an AMA pro license. You get those when you're 16, but I could race for money at local events like AME or CRC or CMC. So I had a pro license in so I could make money. And yeah, I was a local pro at 14, but not an AMA pro. I had to wait till I was 16. Couldn't do what Marty Trice did.
Right. How old are you in this picture, Jim? Any idea?
Yeah, that was the Yamaha Race of Champions. I was probably, I don't know, I might have been 12 or 13. The gentleman behind me there, that's Jeff Ward's dad.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because Jeff was in, and Jeff might have been alongside of me. My dad was probably out of the frame right there. But yeah, those were awesome times. Brian Myerscough. They took 12 top mini cycle guys, and we all raced stock Yamaha YZs and everything, which I thought was pretty cool. That's the era that the XR75 was coming out. There's a great photo. That's yeah, that's to the left. That's Chris Heiser and AJ Whiting next to him with the beanie. Johnny O'Mara, Steve Schmidt with the other beanie, Flying Mike Brown, and myself. That was out at Indian Dunes. We were probably doing a magazine test of some sort out there. But yeah, that's an awesome photo.
Now you had an XR75. But you can only make those things run for so long. You got a sponsorship with a company called PK. Was it Perry Cates?
Paul Cates. His mom and father owned Hacienda Honda in Azusa, California, and he wanted to kind of start his own side business. So him and my dad got together and they built the XR75s and they started PK Racing Products. At a point, I think it was 1975, that Paul came to my dad and says, "What do you think we're going to finish in the NMA Grand National Championships?" And my dad says, "Probably a third, man. The Yamaha, the two strokes were coming in." So Paul went down and he got Yamahas for me. And I ended up racing Yamahas.
You also moved on to the bigger bikes after that. You went on to the 100cc class. And you had a company called Fun and Fast, was it?
Yeah, Fun and Fast. That was Bill Butler. He was actually just down the street from my dad. And funny story about Bill, and I'll tell you guys it. But anyhow, Fun and Fast, they helped me out a lot on that one photo you saw with the flat track helmet. And I think that was a 72 YZ80. I had a Fun and Fast jersey. They made a lot of aftermarket products and stuff. That's when like Torque Engineering was making pipes. But Bill Butler was one of my first sponsors. But I remember I was at Indian Dunes, and I kept looking behind me during the race. And my dad and Bill Butler came up to me and they said, "The race is in front of you, son. It's not behind you. You don't worry about anything behind you. You worry about what's ahead of you. You don't stop looking back. We're going to put mirrors on your motorcycle." And I'll be a son of a gun. I came home from school. We were going out to Indian Dunes on a Friday night, and I had mirrors on my bike. And they made me run practice with it. I never looked back after that. They took them off after practice, but that'll cure a guy real fast. You know, those are kind of old techniques, you know, that I don't see a lot of guys doing nowadays. Another one was, "Hey man, you're sitting down too much. You keep sitting down, not stand up. We're going to take your seat off." And there's been a number of times when I've had to go out and practice without a seat. They would take it off and learn how to ride a motorcycle and use your core body for learning, you know, like a lot you see Jet Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence nowadays, you see the different technique they're riding. You know, they're very rarely sitting. And another one that was good was the front brake. If you didn't use the front brake, then we're taking off your rear brake, and you'll learn how to use that front brake. I still implement that in all my kids that come over from Japan or kids that I'm helping, you know. And the way I tell them is I said, look, if you go in a straight line and you just hold the bike maybe second gear, quarter throttle, right? And you shut it off, you grab the clutch, you push on the rear brake. Here's where you skidded to right there. Now I come back and I go to that same spot. And when I come to that same spot, same speed, same everything, I grab the front brake and the rear brake and I stop and I go, look at the distance. That means you can drive into the corner that much deeper than your competitor. So very important to use your front brakes.
Jimmy, I got to take a little break right here. We're going to talk about Full Circle Racing. Tom McAllister has a special going on still. 18-inch, 19-inch, 21-inch black rims. Send him your hubs. He will powder coat them, build you a brand new set of rims, spokes, nipples, lace, and true. $775 plus shipping and handling. That is from Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. You know what I forgot to mention too, Jim? We got something coming up here. We got the Can-Am 50th reunion. That is coming up on August 19th, 2023. That's coming up August 19th. They're giving away 3 motorcycles up there, 3 restored Can-Ams. And you know what we're going to do? To keep sharing the show, I'm going to give away a ticket to win one of those bikes. Check back on Vintage Motocross Q&A's Facebook page, and we'll give away a bike. Well, we won't give it away, but we will be up there when that bike is being given away. The 100cc class, Jim, tell me a little bit more about that, how that went. Were you riding a Suzuki at that point?
Yeah, I did ride a Suzuki at that point because Suzuki had a good RM100. And then a lot of times I would ride the Mini Elsinore, which was a sleeve down Honda 125 with a C&J frame. So that was another bike. But that was a good transition because it's a lot like nowadays, okay? You got a kid coming off of an 85, right? Well, yeah. You can't throw them on a 250F. It's too much bike, too much power, too much. So you put them on a 125 Yamaha 2-stroke, 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Get them used to learning that. Don't get them in a bad habit of relying on that horsepower of the 250F. You get them lazy. Learn how to get into the corners, in and out. So with the 100cc, we didn't have to jump up to the Honda Elsinore or the Yamaha or the Suzuki because that was too big of a bike. You got to remember, we're kids. We're 12, 13 years old, but we're too big for an 85cc bike or an 80 back then. Yeah. So they had this 100 class, and you can make good money. I mean, all the manufacturers were making it, AME and CRC and CMC, they were paying good money for the 100cc class. And funny story about that is when I started riding it, you know, because I rode 80s until I was close to 16 years old, because we didn't have any money and I could make money and this and that, probably a little bit longer than I should have. But I remember when I turned 18, I was still riding a 100cc class. And my mom and dad at 18, yeah. And my mom and dad, I was just kind of getting into the 125s, but really wasn't, I was still honing my skills in on the 100cc. But they said, hey, you got to get your own insurance now because you're off of our insurance program. I said, oh, I don't need no insurance, you know. And the first race I went out, I crashed. I had to get stitches or whatever. It cost me whatever, $200 out of my pocket. I went down to the insurance company. I got insurance after that.
Lessons that we learn the hard way sometime. Jim, you know, it's really, really unusual that I remember this, but I'm a Northeast guy, and I was at that race. You were on a white Mugen in Southwick.
Correct.
That was because Johnny O'Mara got hurt?
He broke his back in a car accident.
Okay. So Al Baker let you take that bike to Southwick.
Well, Al Baker and Tom Halverson actually drove the box van across the United States, and I flew in. And my deal with Mugen was if I ran in the top 10, then I would continue on until Johnny came back. And then when Johnny came back, because they were on a limited budget, they only had one white bike. They had some production Hondas. The red bike is the production Honda with the Mugen kit. So they only had one of those factory works bikes, and those things were awesome. I mean, unbelievable. But I think I went back there and I ran, I finished up 7th at Southwick. So I could continue on. I think the next round might have been Sears Point, and I think I finished up 6th overall then. So, and then Johnny came back. Yeah, but he broke his back in a car accident. He screwed around on a truck or whatever and went off the side of a freeway.
Okay. Now, I know this story. I've heard you tell this story. I don't know if you've ever told it publicly. I think you have. You rode that white bike, then you got the red one, and you and your dad were working on that red bike in your garage, and Al Baker stopped by. Do you know the story?
That's almost correct. It was my dad was working.
I didn't want to give away the story because tell the story if you can.
Yeah, I can. Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
I want to back up to a little bit earlier so people know what happened and why I did that. So that year, I went to Kenny Clark's office, the racing team manager for Yamaha, and I said, look, I don't have much money, but I want to go out on the nationals this year. I go, can you hook me up with anybody? He goes, I can hook you up with either Moto X Fox or LOP. There are satellite teams for Yamaha. I said, great. He says, you go out and prove yourself in the Golden State Series, and I'll get you hooked up with one of those teams. So I moved to Henderson, Nevada. I left the San Fernando Valley in Northwoods where I was growing up. I told my dad, I can't have distractions. I got a job to do. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to work construction from 6 in the morning till 2 with my uncle, plastering, carrying a hod, all that stuff. And afterwards, we'd have the bike in the truck, go hammer out 2 45-minute motos, go to the house, work out, do all that, repeat it, then go to the Golden State. Well, I won the Golden State that year. In 1980, I won it. So I go back to Kenny Clark's office, me and my dad, and say, hey, man, I'm ready to go. You know, I won. Yeah. He goes, I got some bad news. I go, well, what's the bad news? He said, I can't hook you up with Moto X Fox or LOP. They're already full. I can't get you hooked up. I go, man, well, that sucks. I just win the Golden State. Back then was 40 guys. You remember Lackey rode them and stuff. He would use them to train to get ready for Europe and stuff. And he goes, I got some other bad news. How much more bad can it get, man? You already, can't hook me up with right. He goes, you know the motorcycles that I gave you? I go, yeah. He goes, I need to get those back. I have nothing. I'm out of ride. I have nothing. No bikes, no nothing. So if it wasn't for engineering at Yamaha, Tad O'Connell, which was a Japanese engineer, and Mark Porter, he ran the engineering department at Yamaha, testing and engineering. They backdoored me a couple YZs to get me going. And once I got going, then Johnny broke his back. And that's a nice shot there on the YZs when they were yellow. So once I did that, then Johnny got hurt. Then they put me on the Mugen. So everything went good for the Mugen. I did my job. I was in the top 10, this, that. So Al calls up on a rotary phone to my house, and my mom answers. She says, Jimmy, Al's on the phone. So, hey, what's up, Al? Hey, I got to come over and get that red bike. Johnny's got to go practice on it. We blew up the other one. I go, well, Al, that's my race bike. I'm in the garage, me and Tom Halverson. Tom Halverson was Johnny O'Mara's mechanic. He's getting the white bike ready. I'm getting the red bike ready, and we're using my dad's garage. I go, Al, you can come over, but you're not taking that bike. And so he comes over, and I say, Al, you step 1 foot in this garage, man. I'm just going to pop you. And he came in and grabbed the bike, and I popped him and laid him out on the ground. He wasn't knocked out, but I laid him out. And then I was getting ready to – he went over the parts washer, and I was ready to get back on. And my mom comes out, Jimmy, no, you're going to kill him. I said, well, he ain't taking this bike. And he never took the bike, and I finished out the year for Mugen. I think I gained his respect. But that's twice in the same year that somebody's taken away my motorcycles that I've went and I've done over and above what they asked me to do. And I said, there's no way. So I had to fight for it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you physically had to fight for that one.
Physically.
So, yeah. You went to Can-Am after that, Jimmy, and your dad was there too. Tell me a little bit more about what he did. Was he – I know your dad was in the plaster business, or was that your uncle?
No, my dad was a plastering contractor. Yeah, that's where I learned a lot of my good work ethics. He would take me out on the jobs, and that's back before drywall, like interior plaster. They would cover all the floors, and I'd have to pick it up and everything. And I don't know if my dad made an example out of me or whatever to his other employees, but I was done, and I'm like 7 years old, man, and I cleaned up all the floors, and I was done. And I was sitting in the garage, and they're, plastering this house. And he comes up to me and goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm just sitting down. I got all the floors cleaned out. Everything looks spotless. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm immaculate. I mean, you could eat off these floors. And he looks at, I can cuss on this show, right, a little bit?
You could say whatever you like.
Okay. So he comes up to me and says, He goes, and he was paying me a little bit back then. He goes, I don't fucking pay you to sit on the floors. I don't care if you grab a broom or go walk around the job, pick up papers, but I don't pay you to fucking sit. And like I was a 7-year-old kid, man, I was crying after he walked away. I'm thinking, God, you know, so I never sit. I don't, you know, to this day, I still walk around and pick up trash in my neighborhood that the homeless or whatever leave laying around.
Yeah.
That's just me, man. My kids say I'm nuts for doing that. I go, you know, I don't know. It's just a thing. I'm worried my dad's going to come from the grave or something because he passed away in 2013. Maybe the spirit of Al Holley is going to come down on me.
The thing I didn't quite understand, I think, was not that I didn't understand it, Jimmy, but when I was reading about your time with Can-Am, it seemed that your dad had some influence and was doing some work on those bikes too.
Oh, absolutely. He was a great mechanic. I mean, that's why I hired him, or Andy Colby actually hired him, because Andy Colby was a Can-Am Honda dealer. Jimmy Weiner rode for him the year before because Can-Am wanted to get back into the racing program. So they hired on Jimmy Weiner, but he only lasted a year, and then they hired on me. That's at the LA Coliseum. So they hired me on and my dad to develop the motorcycle. Well, I remember that, you know, Seattle Supercross, we would go, and they would always let me go first out. And I remember some of the guys like Hannah and the guys, they would be following me, and I'd go, why you guys follow me? I want to follow you guys. See, I go, oh, because your bike sits way lower than ours, and when you go through the whoops, you knock them down, you know. So I'm skimming them, and the frame was hitting and all that stuff. So, you know, we had a lot of problems. So we told the guys up in Valcourt, Canada, we go, hey, I think Jeff Smith and the guys, I said, we need to raise up the cradle of the motorcycle and, you know, to get clearance. So I was really excited. Flying Tigers, they shipped the bike down to Kansas City Supercross, and we got it, and the Kickstarter didn't go because they raised the frame. Now I couldn't kickstart. I had to bump start it like a dirt tracker. And yeah, I mean, you get in a main event, you make a mistake, you stall the bike. I mean, you can't bump start those things, you know, the dirt's so soft. It's just, it was horrible. And, you know, halfway through the year, they paid me for the rest of the year. And they just said, look, we're not going to go, we're not going to develop the motorcycle anymore. We're good with what we got. And we appreciate everything you've done for us and stuff. But they were rocket ships, and, you know, they handled good. I mean, I was buckling frames, you know, because they were built for Jimmy Ellis when he won all those races and stuff, and I believe he won a championship in Supercross on a Can-Am.
He did.
But that was back in the mid-'70s. So now you're talking 80s. 5 years later, the Japanese really progressed on developing their motorcycle, but Can-Am didn't, and the tracks progressed. So the motorcycle didn't handle it. Like, I don't think Jimmy Ellis was doing triples, but I was doing triples. And, you know, you land it, you flat land it. That frame there had the air induction into the back of the air box. So they had scoops right alongside the headstead, so the air would go back. But that's where we were breaking the frames. We wouldn't break them off, but they would go from a 28-degree steering radius to like a 45 or something, like a chopper, you know, way out there. I go, man, I can't keep doing this, you know. But it was a good experience for me. You know, I just don't know why I put in a great ride, and there were just not many rides to go around, I guess, at the time. And I ended up having to take the Can-Am ride.
Well, Jim, we're going to hear from our sponsor, Vintco, and when we come back with Jim Holley, we'll hear about how your career really got a whole lot better in the 80s when you started riding with Yamaha. We'll be right back with more Jim.
Vintco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vintco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vintco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vintco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vintco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
back with Jim Holley. You know, Jim, after all those years with Can-Am and the Yamaha thing and the Mugen thing with Al Baker, you really started to come into your own in the 80s with the Yamaha. You had a lot of top 10 finishes, some even top 5 finishes. We talked a little bit earlier about the National Ultra Cross Series. Tell us about the Rodale Cup. You have the honor of being called the first World Supercross champion. What was the Rodale Cup? How did that work? Where did you travel? How did that all come together?
Yeah, that was the first ever. And, you know, I'd gone to Europe a lot. I made a lot of money in Europe, you know, and appearance money and start money. But they came up with the Rodale Cup. And, you know, Yamaha asked if, hey, you want to go do this? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm all about it, you know. And I think it was a 5-round series. I can't remember. I know Sweden was one of them, Spain, Holland, I can't remember, maybe Germany. And the final one was at the LA Coliseum. And that one, Mike Goodwin was promoting, and he said, look, if you win your heat race, there again, you start on the back, or you start on the front row, and the other guys start on the rear row. Well, I didn't win my heat. That's when guys were like laying back and, you know, finishing behind so they could start on that front row. And I had to come through the semi to get in. I had crashed in the heat race. John Vanderberg from Holland, who I still keep in touch with, he finished up second that year behind me. So Yamaha went 1-2 in that series. But that was a great series for me. I mean, it really put me on the map. You know, I'm true and true Yamaha guy. You know, even though Kenny took away my motorcycles, I really I gelled with the Japanese in Japan. I went over there a lot, you know, racing and stuff and testing. I still go over to Japan, you know, probably once every couple of years, spend a couple of weeks over there. But, you know, I've always been a Yamaha guy, you know, even though I went to Can-Am for a little bit and I went to Mugen for a little bit, but now everyone knows my stories why I went, you know. Yeah. But they were a good company. I mean, they helped me out a lot, you know, when I was a factory rider and also before when I was a supported rider, because back then that was the YZ Bucks program first started. So, I mean, I think that year it first came in, I made like 60 grand in YZ dollars, which was pretty good, you know, except for the 1099 that I got, you know, but other than that, it was all right.
Wasn't it you who told me that because of the Yamaha Bucks, you actually made more money than Glover or something?
Well, actually, Glover was complaining. That was Daytona. He finished up third, and I finished up fourth. And he's going, well, you made more money than I did today. I go, well, yeah, technically I did, but you're on a salary. I'm not on a salary yet, you know. But that day I did make more than him in prize money and bonuses. You know, I don't think he got bonuses for third. It was only for the win. And I got good bonuses. Yamaha had great bonuses for the top 20. And that hurt me a little bit, I think, when I was a factory rider, because I would be in fourth when the YZ Buck program, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm fourth. Man, I made this much money. I'm good. You know, I don't need to push, because if I push and get third and I crash and I get 12th, that's a big jump and I lose a lot of money. I need the money to get to the next race or make a house payment or whatever. And so when I was a factory rider, I didn't push quite as hard as I thought I should have, you know, because I was settling in with a fourth or a fifth or a sixth, you know, which was still great performances. But, you know, Steve Mathis, he always ribs me on that. He goes, man, you were the top factory Yamaha guy and everything. They let you go. I go, yeah, but Steve, I didn't win races, and they paid me to win races. That's the bottom line. You hire somebody to win races. I didn't win races.
Jim, this has never happened to me before. I do this show from my garage. I have the door open. My neighbor's landscaper is here. I got to shut the door. So I'm going to go to a commercial.
No problem. You know, before you go, I'm going to take a photo because I want to send it to somebody that's on the show. All right, go ahead and close it.
All right, I'm going to run a commercial. I'm going to shut the door so we don't hear the lawnmower run from next door. I want to thank our sponsor, the International Motocross Museum, for helping us out here at the show. Be sure to visit them on their website, internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. We're back with Jim Holley. The landscaper has not begun yet next door. Let's keep going. Jim, you went to some other countries
one
too.
question, though, I got to ask you, Joe. I really enjoy following you on Instagram and what you do to all the tanks, to the restoration of all the vintage bikes and stuff. It's just, I mean, it's for anybody watching or whatever, you should go to Joe's Instagram, because it is like you're an artist, man. I mean, I see some of those bikes and I'm just going, and then you show the finished product. I mean, how many hours? I know it's each tank's differently or whatever, but what's the average on a restoration of an aluminum tank?
About 25 to 30 hours on an Elsinore tank. I've spent upward of 45 or 50 hours. I recently did a works bike tank, a Suzuki RH250. It was paper thin, and it took me a long time to get that one ironed out. An RL tank, a Suzuki RL tank, they're also very, very thin, and you only get so many chances to raise that metal, use a hammer and dolly on it, and sand so much before you can't do anything with it. But thank you for the compliment, Jim. And yeah,
no, I enjoy it. I mean, you always see I post, man. I love it. I said, man, that's awesome work. You know, I just, you know, do you also do exhaust chambers too, or just tanks?
I do them when I restore a bike. I'll do it for myself, but I just don't have enough time to take that into and start doing exhausts. But if anybody wants to know how to do it, I can show you the tools that you can buy where you can do it yourself. And probably if you did it on your own, you'd probably get it back to about 90-95%.
Yeah, no, you do great work.
Thank you. Jim, you went to some other countries along the way where sometimes the natives weren't so friendly. You were at a race one time where there were some young guerrillas on the line with guns before the gate dropped. Where was that?
Yeah, Guatemala. 16-year-old kid next to me, and yeah, he's got a M16, you know, hanging on. I'm just thinking, man, I was just praying. I hope my bike don't backfire when I'm trying to start it, man. This kid might, you know, think. But yeah, I've been, you know, India was another place that was interesting. I've been in a lot of interesting places throughout my career, but I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends from Guatemala. I was just down there in 2019, you know, because a lot of those places, Joe, when you go there and you race, you're in and out, and you don't get a chance to see the culture and all that. So I was able to, in Guatemala, go to the volcanoes, went back to some of the racetracks where I was at, you know, and Guatemala City, for most people, they don't know it. Its elevation's close to 6,000 feet, I think 5,500. Real cool, calm weather. But you go down to Rio Dulce or Tacao down there, it's like Florida, the swamplands where the Mayan ruins are. Like you're just sweating and just, I didn't like that, but I do enjoy it. And, you know, just to see how, you know, Guatemala back when I was racing was a third world country, but just to see how they've progressed. I mean, they're still not like the United States or whatever, but I mean, how far they've come. And, you know, I feel safe. You know, everyone go, oh, you went to Guatemala. It's so dangerous there. And, you know, the Guatemaltecans are coming here and they're crossing the rivers and all that stuff. I go, yeah, but, I mean, the United States is dangerous. Let's face it. You know, you go to downtown LA. I won't go down some streets in downtown LA because I know, or New York or Chicago or what, Atlanta. You know, it's bad. You just got to know where you're going at. But I enjoy traveling. I still enjoy traveling. It's just now I have grandkids. I just got back from Disneyland with them. They're actually flying back to Michigan, so that was an experience. I talked to Jeff Ward the other day. I actually texted him and see how he was doing after his surgery. And I told him, I'm going to Disneyland. He says, oh man, that's going to be like 45 minutes in St. Petersburg, Florida, man, with the heat and everything, and running around with the grandkids. I go, yeah, it probably would be, you know. And, but I had a great time.
Yeah, I know you did, and we kind of scheduled this interview around that. And you know, those are memories that those kids will absolutely never forget. I want to take a look at a few pictures and see if you could tell me what's going on there and where it might have been. What do we got going on here, Jim? Oh, I know what this one is. No.
Yeah.
This was the Harley one. It's not. This is something else. What happened here?
Yeah, actually, that's Larry Wilcox, the actor from Chips, and he started a clothing line, and that's the clothing line I was wearing. That's Rick Super Hunky's daughter right there, and that's a big road jump that I did. And like, he was hey, stop, and I just jumped over him on a big XL 650 or 600. I can't remember if it was 600 or 650, but that was Larry Wilcox's clothing line, and yeah, it was good.
He had a clothing line, huh?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
What about here,
That's
Jimmy?
yeah, that one was another dirt bike cover, just kind of pancaking it over. I can't remember. I might have a little glare because I want to see what year that was. February 1982. So that was an 82 YZ 125. But yeah, I always had a good time doing the dirt bike covers. That was Tom Webb and Paul Clipper, Mike Webb, all the guys. We tested the limits on a lot of stuff for Dirt Bike Magazine.
Now here's one that everybody remembers. It was certainly the oddest thing I think that we'd probably ever seen in dirt bike, other than maybe Super Hunky riding. He was riding a Sportster through the desert one time, but this I think tops that. We had you on there jumping this Harley.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty famous shot. Like Sergio from MXGPs, he works for Giuseppe Luongo. He actually contacted me. He wanted me to make an 8x10 and send it to him, and I did. But when I first went out there, I was out there, and they said, "Yeah, I'll meet you out there." And I said, "Well, where's the bike?" And they said, "That's the bike." I go, "What do you mean that's the bike?" "Yeah, you're going to jump this Harley." I told Rick and Webb and Paul, I said, "This thing's going to break. Are you okay with that?" "Yeah." Harley said, "Don't worry about it, man. It's okay. They're going to crush it afterwards." And it had running boards and everything. And we went to anybody who does any dirt work, when they grade home pads, on a hill, they grade it flat, then they have a jump, then they grade it flat, jump. So I was jumping up and down those things. The first jump that I took on that thing, the saddlebags blew off. They ended up having to tape them on or re-rig them on, but every time I jumped that bike, something was falling out. And I don't remember how many jumps we got. It might have been 8 or 9 or so. And then I said, "Look, that's it. The bike's going to break underneath me." And we saw stress fractures, on the frame and stuff, and it was ready to go. But that's probably it was a spoof. They put me jumping in the Supercross in the magazine and stuff. But and I did another one out at it was a BMW shot, and for the magazine too. I don't know if it made it into the magazine, but yeah, I've been noted to do a few crazy things like that.
Jim, you also, they call you Jim Hollywood Holley, but I think that's more of a thing that kind of happened just since maybe the race day thing. But you did have a little stint there in Hollywood where you had to teach some people how to ride bikes. You've been in some movies and things like that. I think you taught Ray Liotta how to ride a bike somewhere along the line, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That was for Wild Hogs. Rest his soul, Ray. He was a good guy. He's an awesome human being. A lot of times actors and actresses you work with. I mean, a lot of movies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days with Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson, The Italian Job I did. There's been a plethora of movies and commercials that I've done over the years, but I'm kind of retired from that business too. It's interesting that I used to get paid to stay on a motorcycle, then I got paid to crash them, but I made a lot of money in Hollywood, in residuals, and I was fortunate enough to work on some really blockbuster movies, and but like, one time I remember I was working, and it was called Showtime with Robert De Niro, Eddie Murphy, and Renee
Russo?
Renee Russo. She was in it, and it was Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy they were cops or whatever. So I was dressed as a bum, and I had to come, and I was pushing a cart, and I had fire, And I went up to Eddie Murphy and I was talking to him and I said, "Hi, Mr. Murphy. My name's Jim Holley. I'm a stunt guy. I'm going to be coming with the cart. We got a safety here. We got fire extinguisher. I'm going to have a little fire, but the guy driving the car with you, he's a stunt double for Robert De Niro. He's going to hit me on the corner. Everything will be fine. Don't worry." And he just looked straight. He didn't even acknowledge me or anything. And I like a lot of his movies. I thought he'd been a cool guy. Don't worry about it, man. We got it. But he was kind of I didn't get a good vibe from him, you know. And
really,
I just yeah. And another time, you know, sometimes the producers and the stunt guys say, "Hey, we really don't want you fraternizing with the higher ups," you know. So
yeah.
I'm sitting on the curb and Robert De Niro comes up to me and he says, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "I'm doing good, Mr. De Niro." "Yeah, you don't have to call me Mr. De Niro. Call me Bob." "Okay, Mr. De Niro." "Bob," I said. I go, "All right." So, you know, he's pretty cool. So, you know, we're sitting there about 45 minutes and Rene Russo's there and he looks over and he goes, "Rene, what the hell are we waiting on?" And she looks over and goes, "What do you think?" Waiting on Eddie Murphy. He was in his motorhome and he had a pretty hot chick there and he was whatever he was doing in there. And he made the whole cast and crew wait, you know, 45 minutes for him, you know. And I was wondering, like, why would the producers, you know, put up with this stuff?
Put up with that.
It makes sense. They got, you know, 3/4 of the movie shot in the can. What are you going to piss off Eddie and he's going to leave? Now, how are you going to finish that? Then you're going to get into court battles on. You just let him do his thing. But I thought that was pretty rude of him and, you know, insensitive of the cast and crew. But I was okay with it because we were in overtime. So, hey, more money in my pocket. You know, Eddie, go back in there. But another guy that's a class act. And, you know, the older I get, I'm almost 63 now, but Gene Hackman, such a class act. And there was a boxing arena in the Valley. They used to have a lot of actors would come and watch him. So I'm with a bunch of my buddies and we're in the place and here comes Tony Danza walking. "Hey, there's Tony Danza." "Oh yeah, cool." "Hey, there's Gene Hackman." "Oh, Gene, I know Gene. He's a good buddy of mine." They go, bullshitting, man. I go, "No, seriously, man. When I was littler, he bought me a motorcycle to go to Rio Bravo, Texas, because we didn't have any money. Van Nuys Yamaha. Chris Hackman, his son, rode with me and says, "Hey, is Holley going to Rio Bravo?" And they said, Don Best said, "No, they don't have any money. Their bikes are hammered." And Don Best called my dad the next day and says, "Hey, come on down. You got a brand new bike." And Gene Hackman bought me a motorcycle. And so anyhow, Gene walks in and he walks right past us and he looks at me and says, "Hey, Jim, man, how you doing, man? I've been watching you. You're killing it. How's the Nationals going?" "Yeah, it's going pretty good, man. How's Chris doing? Blah, blah. Hey, this is my buddy, so-and-so, on down the line and stuff. Man, enjoy your evening, G, man. Great seeing you, man. Tell Chris I said hi," and they walked off, and everybody's jaw was like this. I go, "I told you guys I knew him. You know, you thought I was bullshitting you. I don't bullshit."
Yeah. Well, his kid used to ride too. What was his son's name? You were friends with him.
Yeah, Chris Hackman. Yeah, he rode. Yep, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this: while we're talking about the Wild Hogs movie, you had to teach Ray Liotta how to ride. But what about Tim Allen and John Travolta? Did those guys know how to ride bikes? They knew how to ride?
They did. Ray didn't know how to ride. When I first started riding with Ray, I met him, and Jack Hill was the coordinator. And Jack says, "Yeah, you got to teach Ray how to ride one of those Harleys." I go, "Okay. Has he ever ridden?" "Well, I don't know. You're going to meet him." So I went out and I met him. I go, "Hey, Ray, how are you? I'm one of the stunt guys, and I'm here to teach you how to ride." I go, "Have you ever ridden a motorcycle?" He says, "Nope." And I go, "Oh my God!" So I had to start him out on a TTR 90, no clutch, just an automatic deal. And he was riding and he was doing pretty good. But you know how it has a centrifugal clutch. When you push down on it, it's like you got the clutch. Well, he's a ways from me, and he's got his foot because he's a little bit too big for the bike, but I didn't want to get him hurt, right? He's got his foot, and he's probably 30 yards from me, and he's got the thing wide open. It's not going. I'm going, "Ray, don't take your foot." I'm running, Ray. Just about the time I got there, he took his foot off, and he looped out, and he fell right on his back. I go, "Man, Ray, you all right? You good, Ray? You good?" "Yeah, I'm all right." "What happened?" I go, "Ray, I'm going to let you in on another little secret. If it's wide open, it's not going. That's not the problem. So just I go, so from there, then I got him on a TTR 125 and worked the clutch with him. Then I got him on a YZ 125. Then I got him on a XL 350. You know, I got him up. But the problem was, you know, I had 8 hours to work with him. Ray was only good for 2 hours, and he got tired. He had to go somewhere. It was hot, you know. So, you know, Jack calls him. How's he progressing? You know, production wants to know, are we signing off on him? I go, no, I'm not signing off on him. He's not ready for a Harley, man. He's not ready yet. I only work with him a couple. You need production to give him a call and tell him to stay a little bit longer with me. And we got it, you know, we got it together. We got him to ride and everything. And it was funny because we were in Mulholland by Jack's house, and I got him out on the street, and he was on a bigger motorcycle, street bike, I think a Virago Yamaha or something. And he's riding. I said, Ray, next time we go out, loosen up a little bit. I'm going to honk my horn, and I want you to turn and look back at me. Just, you know, relax, you know. So this was a double lane highway, right? Cars are coming. So I didn't see any cars coming, so I beeped the horn, right? And Ray's on the bike, and he goes like this. And he crosses the double line. And I'm watching him. He crosses the line, and I see a car coming. I'm saying, get over, Ray. Get over, Ray. Get over. And he got over, you know, and I went, whew. I go, Ray, when you turn and look, you got to hold your hands like this and look back with your neck. Don't turn the whole bike, you know. So we had a great time, but he was just such a neat guy, because after that fire scene that we did, I had a bunch of fire retardant gel on me, and he says, hey, Jim, you want to use my trailer to take a shower? And you know how that goes over with all the stunt guys. Oh, you and Ray buddies now. You can go in his motor. I didn't do it. I just took the water hose, you know, on the honey wagon and washed up. But when we left the scene, we would be in a 10-passenger cargo van. Ray goes, hop in with me. He had his own personal limo type thing. And of course I jumped in that with him. Screw it. I'm not going to get in that hot van with you guys, you know. So I did that. But he's just a super guy. My mom knew him from Goodfellas and really liked his movies. And I go, hey, Ray, you think I could get an autograph for my mother? You know, she's a big fan of yours. And so he signed it. My mom had passed away. I have the photo here somewhere. And he put to Diane, you know, your son is nuts. You know, so he thought I was a pretty crazy guy.
Jimmy, tell me about this. Do you still own this bike? I mean, you were a big XR75 guy. Do you still have this one?
I still own it. And all those photos, that was my dad's national number. I remember making that for his birthday. That was his rookie number, 23. And those are a lot of the Speedway and Ascot pictures up behind there. But yeah, actually, Fran Kuhn did a story on that bike. And it was a refurbished 1973 XR75, because it's got the red with the bigger tank. The next year in 74, they had a trimmed down. But you had sent me a picture from the Mecum Auto Show, and I want to get there one year in Vegas. But I think those are selling for like $5 or $6 grand. But anyhow, Fran Kuhn's wife was a little upset that he did this story, and he paid for all the restoration. And he had asked if I wanted to buy it, and I said, sure, Fran, I'll buy it. So I bought it from him.
Good. Hey, we got to take.
I don't want to say what I bought it from in case Fran's listening.
Don't say anything.
That he knows what it's worth, but I think it was a couple grand or so, you know. So.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
One of our new sponsors is ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. I love ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, and I'll tell you why. They are replicating really, really cool stuff like this right here. Let me get a better shot of it. See this? An air filter cage for a 1974, 75, well, 74 Honda CR 125. They're also making countershaft protectors like this, countershaft covers, and just a host of other things. ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, and they're not only 3D printing things in plastic or resins, they're also 3D printing things in aluminum now and metal as well. Things like pegs, things like chain guides, and a lot of other stuff. We are back with Jim Holley. Jim, you have had, I don't know, I don't want to say a knack. Maybe you've been blessed in many ways to sort of reinvent yourself throughout time, whether it was going from mini cycles to full-size bikes to supercross to motocross to the Rodeo Cup. And then in the past 22, 23 years, where most guys' careers are over, certainly with motocross, some get industry jobs. You wind up with a great gig, calling some races, Race Day Live, and doing a lot of other stuff too. How did you get into that end of the business?
Well, Joe, I got to hand that to Larry Myers and Larry Huffman. They got me into the, back then I was always about promoting myself and my sponsors. Back when I was racing, I would do TV interviews, and they knew how I could articulate and talk about the sport. I always wanted to, bring the sport up. Yeah, that's, but Sony Alfeld had called me and asked if I would be interested in doing a show called Race Day Live. I've worked with a lot of great guys over the years: Jason Wagon, Chad Damiani, Kevin Barnett. There's Kevin Barnett. He does NBC volleyball for the Olympics. But I've had a lot of different hosts, and I just really like giving back. Daniel Blair, and he started with us in Toronto, and now he's retired. He's moving on to other things. But I retired after the pandemic. It's just, I got tired of committing to 17 rounds of Supercross. That's a lot. It's a grind. You got to do your homework. Everyone thinks you just get in a booth and you do your that's it. You're in a booth. No, your work is done,
Way
prior during the
that.
week, getting the stats and seeing who won the race last year. What's this, different scenarios and everything. I always say to my riders, the key to being successful is, doesn't matter if you're a banker, motocross guy, TV host, whatever, you need OPC. And they go, what's OPC? I said, it's opportunity, preparation, and communication. And the communication is the biggest. You have to communicate to the people. But I learned a lot. And like I said, I retired from that, and I had a great run. And then Feld asked me, they started doing these VIP track walk tours. And Lurch, he does the announcing for TV, for the house on the podium, Steven Scott. And he couldn't do 6, I think, in 2022. And they asked if I could do them. So, sure, I'll fill in, I'll do them. And I did such a great job, and the people loved it. And they go, so they sent me the schedule for 2023. There's Erin Bates. She was great. She did a good job for TV and stuff. I keep in touch with Erin every once in a while. Great person. So they sent me the schedule. I said, look, I can't commit to all 17 rounds, but I tell you what, I'll do like 11 of them or so. So I did 11 this year, and I'm sure I'll do more. The super motocross, they want me to go to Charlotte and then to Chicago, and of course I'll do LA because it's my backyard. I enjoy doing that. It's a unique opportunity to get down there on the floor with the people. I do a track walk after qualifying with, it's 50, but it ends up being 100 because other people fly and other industry people bring. But just to walk the people, because up in the stands, it looks a whole lot different. The husband's there with his wife, and I could do that, and he gets down on the track and he's like, wow, this is big. And then she'll nudge him and go, well, I thought you said you could do it up in the stands. You say you can do all these things. Oh man, it looks so much different down here until you get down there and walk up the face of a triple, and you're looking and you can't see the landing, or you get into the whoops and they're thigh high deep. There's 15, 6 of them, and you get on top of them to blitz them. It's just a different perspective. And then another one I like doing is opening ceremonies. I'll bring a group of 20 down, and they're on the floor for opening ceremonies with all the introductions and the fireworks, and they watch the first 3 or 4 laps of the 250. Then I bring down some birthday shout outs for intermission, and then I'll bring 20 more people on the floor for the 450 main event right behind the starting line, so they get a different perspective of that, the sign, everything, riders coming in or whatever. And then after that, I'll escort another 20 into the press conference. And, it's pretty cool. I think it's nice what Feld's doing because, let's face it, I like stick and ball sports. I can't go into a press meeting at the Rams or the Dodgers. I can't go get opening ceremonies on the floor of Dodger Stadium. I can only be in the stands. So for them to open, that's the beauty of our sport, Joe, is that our athletes are accessible. The fans can come to them, take pictures with them. And that's what I really enjoy about our sport.
And I think this guy's doing a pretty good job right now too, Jim. What would you say? He's gone from
I like James. I think James is good in the booth. I think Ricky's doing a great job. I always enjoyed interviewing, and I always told those guys, you know, hey guys, I'm not going to have this mic in front of me, you know, the rest of my life. There's going to be another time when I'm going to have to pass the baton. And, you know, you guys have lived the sport and you guys know the knowledge. I think that if somebody asked me to do broadcasting at a football game or baseball, even though I know a lot about it, I think I would turn it down just because, you know, I know the history of motorcycles and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think James and Ricky are doing a great job, as well as Jason Thomas. I think Kristen Beat, when she was there, she does her homework, as well as Will Kristen. Yeah, and Will Kristen. I think they do their homework, even though they don't ride. I remember in broadcasting when Chad Damiani and Alan Selk, they came from wrestling. I said, look, guys, we're going to work together. We're going out to the desert, and we're going riding. And I took them riding. And, of course, they're not doing the jumps, but they were so sore. I said, now just imagine what these guys are going through. They had a different respect. Just like if I went into wrestling broadcast, I would hope somebody would throw me around on a mat just so I can kind of know what I'm talking about, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what makes your career, and the way certain guys can announce, like a Ricky Carmichael or a James Stewart or yourself, is that, you know, the old saying, you walk the walk, you talk the talk. You know what's going on there, and you knew what it really takes to make all that happen. Jimmy, you were talking earlier about going to Japan a lot, and you actually had a rider that you were training here. His name was Koji. Remember Koji?
Yeah, Koji Okahara and Takeshi Koikeda.
Yeah. Well, I remember a story that about Koji wanting to change some handlebars on the bike, and you didn't want him to change the bars, and eventually he did it, and he took quite a spill, took quite a crash, and you had to take care of him after he broke both of his wrists. But can you walk us through the changing of the bars and the crash and what happened after that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Koji was a little bit hard-headed, you know. He was old school Japanese. He really trained a lot. You know, I didn't have to motivate him that way. He was motivating his own. But I remember Shibata, one of the Dirt Cool magazines. I mean, I speak a little bit of Japanese enough to communicate, but he was mirroring us for Dirt Cool magazine, and we're at the test track, and Koji really wasn't listening to what I was saying, and I was trying to explain to him that, hey, when I'm not giving you bad advice, but I'll tell you what, this is what we're going to do. I can't go 20 laps in a main event in a Supercross, but I can go 5. So we're going to have a 5-lap race. And if I beat you, you got to listen to what I say. If you beat me in 5 laps, then I just go back to being a team manager. My dad was a mechanic, signing the checks, ordering the parts, booking hotels, flights, all that. I'll do all that. So we went out and we did 5 laps, right, at Corona, at Yamaha's test track, and got back to the truck. And I have my bike on the stand. I have my helmet off, and I'm sitting on the back of the tailgate when he comes riding up. He puts his bike on the stand, and I looked him square in the eye. I said, "Are you fucking ready to get to work?" "Hi." Jim said, "Hi. Go minute." He said, sorry, that he wasn't listening. So we moved on from there. And yeah, handlebars, we had to change it. But this was in Las Vegas. It was at the last round. And we had 2 motorcycles because the last round of Supercross was in Vegas. The first round of the outdoors was in Sacramento at Hangtown. So we took 2 trucks. We took the race truck, and I took my other van with the practice bike because we were going up to Carson City, Nevada, training the altitude to get ready for the National. Well, everything was going good, and it was really hot in Vegas. And so he's in the heat race, and that's when the heat races were still in the daytime, but they added water, and it was really slippery. And I watched Koji stand at hole shotted, and Koji was second, and they come over the triple for the first time, and Koji comes up a little bit short. And I'm up in the stands watching with a few of my friends, and I'm going, now take it easy, Koji, because I knew what he was going to do. He thought he had to hit the water, the throttle that much harder. And I go, no, you got to roll it on, man. You hit it harder, you're going to get more wheel spin. You come up short. And as soon as I saw his elbow go up this high, I went, shit. And they go, what's wrong? I go, watch. And he came up way short, and he faced the jump, and he hit that thing so hard that he broke both wrists. And I go running down to the truck, and Miss Kors was in the ambulance because it was hot and she had passed out, heat exhaustion or whatever. I'm in there. The EMT gal's working on him, and she was a little bit heavy set, you know. And Koji was in there, and man, it smelled really bad in there, you know. Like I'm smelling my arms. I go, man, is it me with perspiration or what, you know? And so I go. So they go, well, can you transport him? I go, yeah. You don't need. I'll transport him. Just secure his wrist. Let me take him back to the pits and let me get him his pants off and all that stuff. So I go back to the truck, and my dad's there, and I say, yeah, I got to transport him, you know. And so let's take his boots off. And he said, no, so and his crossbar was so compressed that we had to take a hacksaw to cut it off just to get to the nuts to take off the two clamps on the top to get the handlebars off. That's what he hit with his guts. So he hit so hard that when I went to take off his boots, he's oh, just oompi, and oompi means shit, like he's got a shit. I go, oh, Koji, you got a shit? No, just oompi inside. Just about that time, I pulled off the boots, and the fucking shit was all through his pants and went down to the bottom of his boots. And I looked at my dad and go, oh, man, no pun intended, but shit, man, what are we gonna do, you know? So we took his pants off, and we took him over to the parts washer, or the bike wash, and on light spray, and we sprayed him down a little bit. And I took the brush from the soap from the bike and scrubbed his nuts and his wiener and his legs, rinsed him down, put his pants on, took him to the hospital, had calls with Japan. They wanted to do the operation in Japan. And I go, okay, no problem. I'll take him to Japan. So the next morning, I'm brushing his teeth and feeding him because, you know, his hands are broke. You know, he can't do anything. Yeah. So anyhow, I go, Koji, you want to go with my dad in the box van? You can sit down in the back sleeper. It's cool. No, just I go with you in your regular truck. I went, okay. So I sent my dad. I go, I'm going to get some food in him. So I fed him. We were about an hour and a half behind my dad. And we start leaving him. We no sooner get 30 minutes out of Vegas, heading to LA, and he's all, and that means pain in Japanese. He's in pain. And I go, oh, fuck, man, this guy's not going to make a 5-hour trip going back in this much pain. God damn. And my wife, she's a nurse. So I called her. I said, hey, Melissa, Koji's not going to make it. I'm driving back to Vegas, and we had 2 motorcycles in my bed. We got on a plane to Burbank, flew him back, got him situated in my house, jumped on another plane, went back, had to get my van, drive it back to Los Angeles, got back, already had a flight booked for the next morning going to Japan. So what a weekend that was. But, you know, we're on the plane, and I just see that look. He'd look over like this. He says, geez, I have to pee-pee. Oh, shit, man. So I got to go to the bathroom with him, unbuckle his pants, and, you know, point it the right direction and shit. And we got to the meetings in Japan with the factory guys, and I said, man, you guys waste a lot of money. I should have just put Koji on the flight, because after I got Koji situated, I still had to fly back to Hangtown because I was doing Prime Network with Larry Myers. So I was doing broadcasting too. So what a weekend that was. And but I told him, I said, you know, if that was me and I was injured, man, I got my wrist like this. I'm looking for the best stewardess on the flight, and I'm saying, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom. Can you help me?
You know, Jim, while we're talking about that, and I mean, that was a pretty serious injury for Koji. We've seen a lot of other injuries this year from a lot of the top riders. You think these guys are making enough money for the risk they take?
Never enough. You know, I mean, you look at stick and ball sports and what they're getting paid, what Messi's getting paid in soccer and all that. I'm not saying those guys don't deserve it. Those guys are athletes too. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
You know, but I think our sport and you know, thank God for Feld and MX Sports getting together and putting together that big 3-race series. You know, the Super Motocross series. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I like to see some more of the privateer guys get money. You know, the guys that are running 10th to 20th. You know, and even 25th, guys like Alex Ray, guys like that, you know, we need those guys. You just can't have a race with 10 factory guys. You know, you need the privateer guys and stuff like, you know, Marchbanks is doing good. And also Ty Masterpool in the outdoors. You know, there's a lot of guys that are Freddie Noren, Kyle Chisholm, guys like that, you know. But yeah, I think that we need more money. I really enjoy what Road to Recovery is doing for a lot of the injured riders and stuff. That, you know, the sport's come a long way. I mean, you got to look at it. You talk to guys like Lackey and Pomeroy and Jimmy Weiner, those guys in the 70s and then the 80s, even when I rode. I remember, like, you know, we fell down, we needed stitches. We went to a hospital, we weren't riding. Now the Alpine Star mobile medical units there, Dr. John Bogner and his crew, they can assess the situation. They can get stitches. You know, they can get you back. I mean, they got me back in Santa Clara at one of the broadcasts for Race Day Live. I got food poisoning, and I had an IV in me until I got on the air. And then once I got off the air, I got on the IV, and I went back to the hotel, and then I came back and did my interviews on the podium. Somebody was, you know, let me know kind of what would happen on the race. But if that wasn't there, I wouldn't have made the broadcast, you know. But I just think the sport's come a long way, but we still need to keep going. We still need to push for more.
I think this new series coming up with the playoffs and this World Supercross thing, I think it's going to do a lot for it.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, let's hope they keep continuing and adding more money to it.
Yeah. Jim, you were at Disneyland with your grandchildren. How many grandchildren? How many children do you have? How long have you been married now?
Well, man, you know, it's ironic. We never got married. We had a ceremony, but we never signed anything. And but she's a great lady. As a matter of fact, we don't even live together because I'm a pretty intense guy, and you know, I like things done a certain way. But she has her own house. I have my own house. But we still do things together. It's ironic. It works for us. We have a great time. You know, we're still, you know, we have 2 sons. James, he's a professional golfer, and he's a great kid. He's 30 now, and he's got the 2 grandkids. Wyatt, who just turned 4 June 24th, and Willow, she'll be 2 September 20th. And then my other son is Jared. He'll be 29 November 4th, and he's a SWAT officer down in the Bay, Torrance, Redondo Beach, all that stuff down there. So pretty proud of him. I got a chance to, excuse me, after Salt Lake City, the police department flew me back to the, it's called the Unity Tour. It's to raise money for the Fallen Officers Fund. The ceremony was in Washington, D.C., and they read off all the fallen officers throughout all the United States. There was 12,000 officers with their sidearms and everything there. And I couldn't have been in a safer area. I'm thinking, man, some knucklehead here comes in Washington, D.C., they're in trouble because they ain't going to get out of here alive, you know. But everything went well, but I was able to see that ceremony, and they flew me back there to drive the truck back with my son. My son did 300 miles, 100 miles each day. One ride was from Baltimore to Philadelphia. I didn't get a chance to see the rides because I was in Salt Lake, but I did make the ceremony, and I did make the trip across the United States. We had a big truck, 26-foot trailer with a truck, said Redondo Police Department on it, and I was so scared, Joe, because all the bicycles were in there, the African twin motorcycles that they use with the guns, and then they had a safe with all the sidearms. There's probably 15 people from Redondo Beach there, and they put their sidearms in the safe in the trailer. So I told Jared, I said, we got to back this trailer up when we stop at night up to a wall so the back can't open up, and up to the side so they can't get to the side. And then I opened up the hood, and he says, what are you doing, Dad? I said, this is an old trick. I'm going to teach you, Jared. That's how you pass things on down through the generations. I said, we're popping the hood and we're popping the fuse panel. I'm taking out the fuel pump fuse. So if they get in there to steal the whole kit and caboodle, there's no fuel going to the fuel pump. So we take this little fuse out. Now let's try to start it. I put it in, fire it up. I go, we're taking this out. It's going in the room with us. So for all you listeners out there, if you're worried about your truck getting stolen, just take out that little fuse. They ain't going to take it. That's unless they come with a tow truck.
Yeah, you think about that before you go buy an electric vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe you could disconnect the battery.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to cover tonight, Jim? Anything that we didn't talk about, and anything else that's on your mind?
No, I think we did it. You know, I'll be up in Canada, like I said. I think we're leaving on the 17th to fly up there. I'm looking forward to that. their 50th anniversary. They got an MX6 for me to ride. The guy's coming from Calgary. He's already taken photos of the bike, and he put number 23 on it in honor of my dad. That's the festival right there. And John Lake's putting it together and everything. It should be an awesome time. And then I get back from that, and then Carson City, Nevada on the 25th and 26th, we do a flat track race. I like to give back to the flat track riders, the local guys, Interbitson, and I'm thinking of who else is be there. There's a lot of good guys. Cal Kolkman. We have a great show that we put on. We have amateurs, and Showman Nagasawa, they're back. Good luck to him. And, and Loretta Lynn's, hopefully he wins one. He'll be back. He's going to race that race because I want to teach him how to slide a motorcycle. Then from there, we're going down to Mammoth because he qualified for Mammoth. And then they'll head back to Japan. And then on this Tuesday coming up, I pick up 2 more riders from Japan coming over for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, staying pretty busy still.
Jim, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. And I hope I do. I'm sure I will. I'll see you up in Canada pretty soon.
Yep. We'll see you then.
You're probably going to be one of the guys picking the tickets for some of the raffle bikes, I bet. So, and I'll be doing the announcing for that. So once we'll get to work together a little bit.
I'll pick the tickets. You read the name.
Sounds good, Jim. I think I can handle it.
Or just the number. Is it the name or the number they put on there? Just the number, probably.
I'm like you. I show up. They give me a microphone.
We'll wing it. We'll wing it. Yeah, I've done that before.
We'll see you up there, Jim.
Thanks for calling, and see you all later. Take care.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
My guest today has been Jim Holley. I want to thank him for joining me on Vintage Motocross Q&A tonight, and I will be working with Jim up at the Can-Am 50th reunion. That's coming up just a couple of days from now. And we're going to take a little break. Then we'll come back and wrap things up here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Hey, it's Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You can put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. Yeah, we've got some other events coming up in October. Don't forget George Ackerman and the Moto Barn. That happens October 28th. Get a hold of George. Make sure he has enough food and drink for everyone. We've also got shirts that are still for sale at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Follow the link in the show description. You can get yourself a shirt. Thank you to Racer X Magazine. Do a great job for us. You can see our ad in the back of every issue. And Gino, come on, boy. Come on. The second, he knows when it's the end of the show and he wants to come up here. So this is it for another episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Me and Gino and Susie and Jordan and Chelsea and everyone want to thank you for joining us. And my guest tonight, Jim Holley. Thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time to talk to us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. That's a wrap for this week. We'll see you next time.